When we were getting started, we kind of wanted to see what our competition looked like, and we were just kind of amazed at the lack of quality.
And they delivered that to a client, right? And so when we see these
That's
things,
their deliverable,
we're just like, that's like a...
I thought it was unacceptable, personally.
Yeah.
So we're back for another great episode of The Contractor and the Accountant. My name is Todd Whalen. I am your contractor.
And I'm Shannon Sheridan, your accountant.
And we have a really exciting episode squared out for today. We have the Codys are in, right? Cody Short.
Yes, sir.
And Cody Parks with AXB Drone Solutions. You guys are amazing in this industry. Veteran and female owned, although the female owner is... She's going to sit off camera for a little bit, but we're going to get her in here shortly. And veteran-owned as well. Cody, thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
You were founded this year. You specialize high-end quality drone photography, videography, serving almost all industries from agriculture to commercial real estate to private land sales.
And they've done some of our projects.
And you have,
right?
We were one of the introductory
Thank
customers,
you.
right?
Yeah.
Thank you for beta testing with us.
Yeah. We'll be your beta tester.
Right? At least you know you have a viable business model.
Yeah, it's good to get some good positive feedback.
Right.
You know, starting out as a new company, you know, that's kind of
Yeah, so
feedback
tell
we
us,
needed.
so it is a new company. What dragged you into this? I mean, you're also an FAA licensed pilot, so somewhere along the lines there was a culmination of passions. Walk us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me personally, I just got done serving my time with the Coast Guard as a crew chief on the MH-65 helicopter platform. So I kind of already had a knack for an eye in the sky, looking, doing search and rescue, looking for people in the water. And I kind of always just had a passion for aviation. And then I've always been close with my sister, Erin Parks, and my brother-in-law, Cody Parks, and they were back here in Florida, and we talked, and they had mentioned the need for high-quality aerial photography here and how there's been a lack of reliability and dependability on other operators that they've worked with. And together we brainstormed, and we said, I've got the talent, I've got the license,
Right.
they have the industry connections, like, let's make this happen.
Yeah, it was really interesting when you came back and you're like, oh, I've recently gotten into a hobby of drone flying. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And we were looking at his shots from Hawaii. He was capturing his friends, surfing out on the ocean, or I think you were on one hiking trail, which was really good footage. That was, really nice to see from the pillboxes. And we thought, well, Erin had been, I wouldn't say complaining, but she'd been noticing that the lack of drone operators in the construction industry was a big thing, just finding someone who would go to the site on time and deliver, right, a good quality product. So we kind of married these passions together and said, let's start a family business. Let's get something that we can grow and maybe pass down for future generations, as we do have a couple kids. And, we just said, well, let's try and secure something for our family together.
And you guys have a unique skill set too, right? So you're Cody S. is ex-military. You have a great, and the drone pilot. But you also have a unique experience, though, too, in search and rescue, aerial reconnaissance, through that military training.
Absolutely.
But then on the complete opposite operational side of the coin, you have you have a much different skill set, but both equally as important. Tell us about that.
Agreed. So I've been in a couple different companies here in my career. So I've worked with the Big Four accounting firms, PwC, KPMG, where I did some auditing, so a little bit of accounting there, and then some global tax compliance management, right? So a lot of project management, handling clients' tax requirements in 55 different countries takes some effort to collaborate with all those 55 different partners.
I just have the United States.
I didn't do the taxes, mind you, but I was there to collaborate and get them together, right? Delivering to our clients as they needed, making sure they were just up to date, right? These are some good qualities that any business you want to work with needs to have. And so right now I currently work with Citibank, right? And I'm a part of their federal compliance regulation department.
Nice.
And so a lot of project management, right?
Citibank.
A little shout out.
I got a great Citibank credit card by the two.
Oh, good. Yeah.
We get great interest rates from Citibank. Yeah.
I'd love to hear it.
2%
Yeah.
cashback.
So because I'm over.
That's our 2% reward card. Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It's a good card. I like it. So, but yeah, I've really grown my career doing a lot of project management type of stuff and being able to hold it down in that sense and deal with multiple clients and just I know what you want to be delivered to you, and I know you want it to be delivered on time, or at least be told there might be a slight delay. One example we have with a client is we're trying to film about a mile away from an airport. And you can talk more about the approval system later, but it really does require you to go to the FAA and say, hey, we're going to be flying near an airport. There's going to be people in the airspace coming and landing. We need to get these approvals. So we've been communicating to him that we're trying to get this approval from the FAA. As a federal agency, it takes a little while. But, that's just something I know the client wants to be in communication with, right? Not left in the dark.
Well, I think that's it, with any profession. Like when I was doing tax returns and accounting, and if I didn't tell them where they're at in the process and communicate and be transparent with them, they have automatically, you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything. You're not doing
I
anything.
haven't heard from you, therefore you're not working.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
We're providing a quality service, and they're paying for it, and so we're going to just try to keep you abreast of what's going on. That way you feel like you truly are getting the value that we're providing to you.
Yeah, and that'll squish any, before it turns into a mountain.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Be proactive.
Before we dig into some of those details, I got to ask though, right? Because it's like the hottest thing right now. You mentioned flying around an airport. It didn't seem to matter too much over there in Jersey. What's the deal with all the drones in Jersey? And all the secrecy on the drones. You're ex-military. Break the insight right here on the Contractor and the Accountant Show.
Give us the download.
What's your real take on that, and how much of that?
It is interesting.
You're familiar
I think Donald Trump came out and said, like, it's nothing to worry about. It's not China. Don't worry. It is a little fascinating, though, because I assume it must have been some sort of military operation, though, because as far as being in our industry, we are limited to 87 knots of speed and drones under 55 pounds of weight. And what people were reporting were like
Huge.
vessels much larger.
Right. Yeah,
So like it is interesting. Like I said, because due to our regulations, like we're limited to 400 feet above ground altitude, and what people in Jersey were reporting was like big unmanned ships. So I haven't seen any good footage of anything that was recorded in Jersey, but I like to think it could be something else.
Flying inland, then heading back out.
I think there was no heat
The
source.
one thing that, and I can understand a lot of that stuff, but the one thing I can't really put my arms around personally, the one that doesn't really make sense, is the flight time.
Yeah. So
They're up for a while.
that's what that was being reported, and I know
Yeah.
just being with Cody here while he's out flying some of our projects and seeing how long the drone can last in the air, especially if there's other aircraft in the area and it's reporting, your location and them gathering that data. The battery says 45 minutes per battery,
Yeah,
but
if you're lucky.
if you're lucky, depending upon the scenario. So to hear about these drones in Jersey that were up there for
Hours.
Yeah, just
5, 7
hovering.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, like, I understand lithium-ion battery is, like, incredibly proficient. Like, it's really efficient, and
Right.
it's great for the application of, unmanned aircraft. But several hours, like, that's incredible. Like,
Yeah.
I've yet
Yeah.
to see anything to even come close to that sort of flight
That's
time.
the only thing that says,
Yeah, like-
I don't
Yeah, I
know.
don't
Someone's
know
really
about
not
that.
being
Yeah.
truthful.
Yeah,
here.
something from Roswell, New
Yeah.
Mexico, or
Yeah.
something, like,
They're testing it.
Yeah,
Let's
there's
be
gotta be
honest. They're
something
testing
more to it.
Because now all of a sudden it seemed to have stopped. Once everybody was like,
Yeah.
hey, what's going on here? They're like, oh, shit, we can't do it.
Right. They're like, oh, too many
Yeah,
people
we're
are
gonna have to
catching
move
on.
this.
Yeah.
We're going to move this real quick. So,
Yeah,
all
but
right.
it was right by all the residential stuff. So you would think, like, wouldn't you guys go out to Roswell, like, stay a little more low-key away? But I guess if you're truly running an operation near a city, that's kind of where you'd want to be. So
But tell us about the drones you fly now, though, because there's so many different types, right? You can go to Walmart and buy a little drone. I could fly it around my
Yeah.
house, you know what I mean? But it's clearly not what you fly,
Yeah.
and certainly not equivalent to what's coming off the coast of Jersey. So,
Not-
Yeah, it's
so
not
tell us a
quite,
little bit
sadly.
about the technology, the drones. What is it? What is special about your drones?
Yeah, so we have stayed pretty faithful to the DJI lineup. They've pioneered the industry for the last 15 years. They're always ahead of the curve. So what they've done really well in their newest models, so we fly the DJI Air 3S, and that actually has a LiDAR system along with omnidirectional camera
Really?
systems, yeah. And then we fly their smaller drones for more indoor and
Oh yeah, because you go through the building.
yeah, so
Right.
we do fly DJI
I got one of
Mini
those in
4.
the house. Yeah, it's got a 4K
Which is
camera on
great.
it.
And
Impressive.
like I said, they've just done such a good job of navigating the industry because with the DJI Mini 4, it's under the 250 gram mark, which lets you kind of skate some of the FAA regulations because FAA, if your drone is under 250 grams, there's certain parameters that you don't have to follow. So it gives you
grams of weight, not
grams of weight.
grand as terms.
Oh,
of
no, not money. Money, weight.
250K, but you guys went all into this business.
Yeah, we got a little small loan.
The small business.
So 250 grams. What is that? I don't have my slide ruler.
So in weight, that's about the equivalent of like a 16-ounce soda.
Yeah.
So if it weighs less than that,
if it
you're
weighs less,
fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're able to have more flexibility in some of the content that you're able to shoot, whether because some of the limitations has to do with flying over people is a big one.
And there's a maximum weight. I think we use
yes, a maximum weight of 55 pounds.
55 pounds
Yeah,
is the maximum
that's correct.
weight of a drone.
Yeah, so the Mini 4 is great. Same thing, traveling internationally. Most other countries also acknowledge the less regulation on having a drone that's under that 250 grams of weight. So it just offers tons of flexibility, easy portability, great flight time. You are limited to a lot of things, though, such as wind conditions. I mean,
Well,
you got a little bit of a wind, man. That thing's
flight
going.
time is going to be smaller
wind,
as well,
Cloudy
right?
days, sunny days.
You might not get
And same thing, the technology package on board is just so much more simpler
yeah,
because
auto
it's not
detection.
able to have, because they kept it under that 250 grams. But then we have our larger professional drone, the DJI Air 3S, and that thing is just jam-packed. Like, again, DJI, I recommend them to anyone wanting to get into the industry. They're just so ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
They have ADS-B broadcasting, so when we are flying in the Gulf, basically it's called Gulf airspace, Class G airspace. It'll broadcast the signal to other aircraft in the area, letting them know we are flying.
Oh, nice.
in the
So it
area.
kills two birds with one stone.
private.
Yeah, so it literally pings to other aircraft saying, like,
Nice.
hey, I'm in the area, I'm
Right.
at this altitude, these are my coordinates, watch out for me, and I'll watch out for you. And it does that all on its own.
Right.
And then
So
another...
if I'm flying, I'll get a warning, traffic.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
I mean, I'm getting a private pilot license right now, so I have a small bit of vocabulary.
Yeah,
Knowledge.
you get it chirping in your headset, traffic.
So you'll get that, and then we'll also get it from the.
Yeah, we will. We'll get it on our remote. We actually get the same thing. Manned aircraft in the
area.
vicinity.
Okay.
So that's incredible. And then another thing it's capable of is called LAANC, LAANC. And it's low altitude authorization notification and capabilities. And that allows us to get authorization near airports immediately.
Oh, nice.
So airports can work with the FAA to be a part of this LAANC program. And when we arrive to the area, we go into the controller, we can actually automatically request authorization to fly in the airspace, and it'll approve us or deny us right there on the spot. And that's incredible. Like, that's another thing like DJI where they just make it so convenient. It's almost, they're like the iPhone of the drone world.
Great.
It's
Great
very
way to describe
intuitive,
it,
very simple, very forward
The
thinking.
user experience is.
It's incredible.
Yeah. But then it gets into, once you get past the technology, you got to get into the creativity of it.
That is probably where
Right.
the quality does come in of having a great operator, right? And when I do go on projects with him at the same time, having two brains there to kind of talk through, and what is he seeing? What do I see? Okay, what is the client asking for? Like, how do we merge these conversations together when we're there on site? And I think a really good experience we had recently was getting the roofing of an Advent Health hospital over in Wesley Chapel, right, not too far from here. And it was not just one square hospital building like you would think, right? It's this, I don't even know how to describe it. It looked like a crown, right? Because it's a half circle, and then it's got some areas that poke out this way, different wings, and then different elevations,
and
right? And so when we were out getting a couple orbital shots of the roof and the progress there, he was like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna go at this level." And then as a visual observer, I was like, all right, just watch out for that giant crane in the front because he's focused down, right? And so it was just a great little combination of work going out there and seeing what the drone can do.
Very cool.
So what's the coolest project you've done so far to date?
Ooh.
I mean, honestly.
Other than the Eclipse Building Corp project.
I mean,
we do love shooting your guys'
Yeah.
buildings. They are great.
I know we were kind of biased in that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, listen, we want to bring the greatest content and the greatest companies to our listeners. So.
That's right.
So, Go ahead.
I think for me personally, it was shooting Moffett.
Oh, the one where you got to the
Moffett?
sunset?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a building, a shoot that he got, and we can give you guys some links for that later. But he got it at sunset just as the golden hour had passed, and you
nice.
stayed there, and you still got some nice sunset aerial on the back with the building still illuminated and give it a nice orange
Yeah,
glow.
that's where you have to get creative. I didn't think about that. It's not just flying a drone.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
actually
Wendy
created.
flies.
Yeah,
Wendy
yeah.
flies.
The
Everything,
ambiance of it.
You know, weather, lighting, type of like where's the sun, overcasting, exposures, apertures. Like if you're a photography nerd, like you can get really fun with it, and
Right.
get really creative with it.
Yeah, and that's the great thing with the DJI. They've got like set into the AI software, like, oh, you can set waypoints, or you can kind of tell the drone what you want it to do, but you still have to have the eye when you're there, right? And you're like, okay, this is how I want to capture and note again to marry those together. I would say,
So it doesn't look so mechanical. It kind of
Right.
flows a little bit.
Yeah,
more.
we've
It's easy just to go straight up and straight out. And,
Yeah.
hey, look
Yeah.
at this building, and then look at that building.
yeah, exactly.
Right, but are you flowing through it, and are you blending it, and then editing?
Yeah, and it's funny you say this because when we were getting started, we kind of want to see what our competition looked like, and we were just kind of amazed at the lack of quality. Like their videos were so jerky. We had the privilege of having
Or
some
simplistic.
Or too simplistic.
Yeah.
Like we had the privilege of like having some people send us some content from other operators that worked with, and we were just like, man, like jerky videos, bad lighting, bad
Yeah,
angles.
they didn't check their autofocus. I think they had a manual focus on at one point, so as they left from the building, it just stayed really blurry. I was like, well,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah,
But, and they delivered that to a client, right? And so when we see these
That's
things,
their
we're
deliverable,
just
huh?
like that's like a
I thought it was unacceptable personally.
yeah. I would
Like-
I would never. I would be like, all right, we're gonna go back out and we're gonna shoot this again.
Yeah.
We made
Yeah,
the
yeah.
mistake.
Yeah.
And I think that's like part of the fun is we get to have so much pride in what we deliver because we're also just as excited for them. Like a recent customer, they started posting some of the stuff we provided for them on their social media, and it's just so cool to see like that was us, and it shows like we're prideful of it. They love it too. That's why they're using it to post.
That's how we feel about building buildings.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
great. Like, it really is a sense of pride.
We did that.
Yeah, it really
Yeah,
is.
you
It's
really
amazing.
did.
Yeah.
Drive
It's
down the road.
fantastic.
Yeah, I built that, but you might have just swept the floor, but you still had a hand in it.
You were
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah, I
Or
shot
you
that.
could be the GC that built it. Actually, yeah, I did build that building. But,
Yeah.
even as a GC, we don't self-perform anything. We sub it all out. So
Yeah.
we don't actually.
No, it's still awesome though, just knowing that you took a part of it and brought it all
Right.
together. You know.
So I have
Now
a
you
question.
get the team.
How is it working with family?
Ooh.
I mean, we get along great. No, we do.
Your sister, your
Yeah,
brother-in-law.
It is funny you say that. Every once in a while, we kind of blur the lines of
Family and business partners.
family and business because
Yeah.
sometimes we get a little mouthy and we're like, all right, like, we
So
gotta
who has
remember.
the majority of the shares? Because you can't have 33.33333. Someone has to have a
We-
34.
So if you look at all of our documents, we're
we
missing
are.
0.001% of shares somewhere, just floating out in the ether, right? We just-
Something's gonna
it's
end
just
up in
good
court
karma.
somewhere in time, right?
But actually, I do feel bad for him because Aaron, as his wife, I feel like he
Oh,
kind of gets.
yeah.
I think he gets his arm twisted because he has to go home to her every night. You know,
It's 2-1.
you know, if me and my sister Aaron butt heads, it's fine. I'm not going home to her, but he is. So like, he's gonna have to hear about it if
then we
he starts
gotta work
picking my
together.
side. And
Yeah,
so,
we got to work
Yeah,
together.
we
to
know
raise
how
the
that
kids,
feels.
so.
Yeah.
And you work each other against one another too. It's
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Well, I want you to
Sometimes
do
it's
this. So
fun.
Aaron's going to her husband, kind of like, "Hey, you got to get him to do this because
No,
he won't listen to me."
and it's so funny we've already
Uh-huh.
experienced that. Yeah.
I don't think we're getting to that reality show level yet, but no, yeah, we obviously we try to keep it cordial when it comes to business, and we got to remember, okay, we're business partners, even though we are family. So it definitely gets a little challenging where. We started, I think, a basic business owns everybody has an operating agreement, right? And so we learned looking at it, we're like, okay, well, what if we want to dissolve? Like, what does that look like? What if, someone wants out? And it's like, well, no, we don't want out. We're going to be in this forever. But the operating agreement, like, still had made us, think about those thoughts that we were just
That's
like,
your
well,
prenup.
Yeah, it's your prenup. Yeah.
seriously.
You got to ask the question.
Yeah.
What if?
Yeah.
Yeah. What if?
Yeah,
Yeah.
any
Gotta ask the
partnership
tough
needs
questions.
any partnership needs a prenup
Yeah.
because it starts off so great.
Yeah.
So and then you go through these challenges. So let me ask you, as far as AI goes, where do you see the drone technology in 5 years by 2030?
I think it depends on what sector you intend on using it for. As we talked about earlier, as far as doing imaging, you still want that creative. You're
Right.
like, AI is not going to help you be creative. Like it can fly a waypoint for you. You can tell it where to go.
Yeah.
But if you want something cinematic, you want something truly personal and amazing, the human aspect of
Touch,
it will
yeah.
always be important.
Yeah.
But it has its strong suits. Search and rescue, I've already seen it. I have some friends also in the industry. It's incredible. The way you can set waypoints and grid lines. You can set search patterns the way you would
Right.
if you were operating in a military operation, and it's fantastic. Also, with more packages and enterprise editions of these drones. They have incredible technology. There's thermal cameras you can add to them. There's tracking you can add to them. There's identification, like even up in the sky, it can identify something that moves past it, and then it can actually has the ability to lock onto it and follow it. Right. Which is honestly amazing, especially
facial
in
recognition.
Speaking of that, we've seen people in the security industry, right? They have started to put drones onto larger warehouses or something, and that way at night they don't necessarily need the security guard.
They're just flying a pattern.
They fly a pattern.
It comes back to a charging station, charges up for a little while,
like your
reflies
Roomba,
another pattern.
kind of like a Roomba or something.
So
if there's like
wings, that's great.
Roomba with wings. So if it senses like a motion tripwire or something, right? The drone lock goes out, and then as Cody pointed out, it looks for motion, looks for movement. You know, it's 2:00 in the morning. No one should be out here moving. So what is it looking at?
Yeah. That's interesting. That's an idea for some of the projects.
Some of the projects, I mean, we build projects sometimes. We're required to have like some kind of a security guard or something. Somebody's got to be there, in the middle of the night to keep an eye on it. But a lot of times that's your weakest point. They're getting paid off, they're getting kickbacks, or they just fall asleep.
Yeah, they're just
taking
a
not doing their
snooze.
job. But when you have that electronic surveillance element, we already put cameras on all our projects. But that technology is rapidly advancing. Like you said, infrared technology, motion sensors, tracking, auto tracking, PTZ capabilities.
Well, and it's normally going right up to a server, right? So no one can erase the data before you can review it.
Yeah, and then you got one camera station that's pulling video from 360-degree view. So it's not even like you can approach the camera from a blind side. There is no blind side to the cameras.
As long as it's high enough, As
long as it's high enough, And you see them in parking lots all the time, right? You go to your local shopping centers, especially around the holidays. They'll have that big long pole sticking up in the air with like 4 of them on there and a blue light to make you think it's the police. But they're monitoring it. They're keeping an eye on it. And if there is a problem, they can at least go back and hopefully capture some information from it. But that technology is going. It sounds like drones are heading the same direction. Law enforcement. What's your expansion? What's your plans for AXB now? You've gotten it off the ground. You're not. You're in that startup phase, but you're like, okay, the common rule of thumb in business, right? Be specific to be terrific. So what are you going to specifically be going after to grow AXB?
We're specifically providing services that you're requesting.
We specifically want to get paid. Timely.
Personally, I really enjoy what we've been doing so far. I'd like to get more into agriculture and with architects. The ability to do, especially with the DJI, the Air 3S that we have, we're actually able to create 3D maps out of 2D images. So we set waypoints to fly over an area with the gimbal down at 90 degrees. And it flies over, it's able to capture enough image to tell you different heights based on the light bouncing off the ground coming back up to the lens. It's able to lay into the photograph information of the heights of different things. And once you do that, you can stitch together all the images into a 3D map, and you're actually able to rotate around it. And with agriculture, you can, if you take a pile of sand, you can say, okay, this is the volume of the sand, but you can do the same thing with a drone.
Right.
You fly it over, and it's able to capture how much sand is right there. So if you're in agriculture, say you need to sell the sand, move the sand, new builds, especially new development in Florida, construction's going crazy. All that sand you're digging out for your new development, it's got value to it. So, it's super cool to see that we can give that kind of information.
Topographical studies, elevations, cut and fill analysis. But even like you said, agriculture, right? Could you fly over, like, say, a corn crop and go, look, those corn stalks are, they're at 30 inches right now on average. You know what I mean? And we're starting to see the flowers, and then pretty soon, because otherwise you're standing at the edge of the crop looking in.
Or you have to send
you don't really
down.
get an overview of how it's doing as a whole. Or
especially if you add multispectral imaging, you can as you go through the different wavelengths of the visible spectrum, you can see areas where areas are more dry than others. So you can more topographic stuff.
I was talking with someone yesterday where she was talking about you can see when someone's dug a hole for a body.
You can see where the ground moves.
I was like,
the ground's been agitated. Absolutely, you can tell where the ground's been recently agitated. So There's
well,
just
the
there's
new
so many
LiDAR
possibilities.
radars too. You know, they're finding civilizations
Yeah.
in
Oh,
the
yeah.
Amazon. They found a bunch of columns underneath the pyramids. So
Well,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
a satellite
Put that
on
on
that
there.
one. Yeah.
Allegedly, water.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious to see what comes of that. But yeah, when I was watching probably a similar documentary in the Amazon when they would come fly over, and you're right, yeah, they're finding all of these massive what once were structures there because they can see there's just some slight differences using the LiDAR
Yeah, very
technology.
slight deviations. They're seeing pathways, irrigation ditches that used to exist that are all gridded out in certain patterns and stuff like that. It's
I don't know if we'll
pretty
branch out to
fascinating
that
stuff.
yet,
They haven't even really started to really look at it all. I mean, it's such a massive amount of area.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
45
Yeah,
minutes
it
flying
is.
around with a drone isn't really going to cover
No,
a
and that-
pinhead size of it.
And that's what I think the industry is probably going to next is they're going to look at better, battery capabilities.
Yeah,
How can
so
we pack
probably
more
in 5
power
years,
in there?
I would assume they have
Yeah.
probably
Because I think we're looking at graphene batteries next. Maybe.
Oh man, maybe. I mean, I've seen
the children in China
Glass.
getting it out.
So one of the other great emerging technologies that we're actually investing time and energies in pursuing is more on the aviation side for the drones is air taxi services,
Yeah.
right, and eVTOL
Yeah,
aircraft,
takeoff
right, the
planes,
Jetsons,
VTOL.
right, and so they have a scooter out right now. It's the Jetson.
Oh, really?
Right. Oh yeah. I don't know if you've seen it. We'll put some links in the, for the viewers. Yeah. It's called the Jetson, and it's like a 4-wheeler, but it's a drone, and you fly it just like a 4-wheeler.
Okay.
I've seen
And
some.
then
I've seen
air
some
taxi
commercial
services
YouTubers.
and stuff like that. So right now, you're considered what, a private drone at 55 pounds, and then once you get above 55 pounds, like some of these air taxi services, and let's say
Yeah.
industrial applications for drones, the Amazon delivery services,
Right.
fertilizing crops.
Even Uber, like we
is
talked about with the
even-
VTOL, the
yeah,
vertical takeoffs and landings.
Air taxi, yeah.
Air taxi, yeah. I've seen a very cool setup. It's called the. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank.
You're on your own here, buddy.
Yeah.
I know. I think it's called the
Don't worry,
Blackfly,
we'll
and it's really cool. It's basically a C shape with the rotors on the front and back. So it's a C shape. So when it lands, it kind of just it doesn't need landing gear because when it lands, it kind of just tips forward.
Right.
And then you get out. And then when you get in it, the rotors fire up in the front to kind of level you back. It'll kind of rock you
Right.
backwards and then just
Take
Bring
off.
you
drops
up.
right on. Yeah. And I
Very
think
cool.
that's really cool.
I've seen some YouTubers review some of the drone delivery services for like food and stuff like that, and
I've seen that. And I have too.
Yeah, I think right now it's not quite there,
Not quite
but
there,
I think that could be something you could see. Those really quick trips, probably not more than a mile or so away from where
Yeah.
the restaurant is.
Right.
But also, what was the other thing I saw? Is China has the flying cars. Right, what was that guy?
Oh, yeah, I
Show
just saw
Speed,
that.
I
That
think
came
that
out
used the streamer. He was just over there, and he got in a flying car. I don't know how
Yeah,
much of that was,
eVTOL.
end of CGI
Yeah.
stuff, but I could see it happening for sure.
Yeah, the biggest, I think the biggest hurdle is just always going to be the same thing that it is right now, and that's going to be regulation with the FAA.
Right.
Air traffic is expected to double in the next 7 years
Yep,
commercially. So now,
Yeah.
on top of more flights taking off and landing, we're now filling the sky with, these miniature drones. You need to make sure they're being used responsibly. And then there's always it was interesting. It's what do you do if someone doesn't want your drone in your airspace? There's been reports of people shooting down drones.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
angry farmer,
Flying
whatever
around
it
here,
is.
It's one
like,
thing to spy on me with binoculars.
right. So yeah, in regards to
But you're flying a drone over my pool now. That's a
right,
totally
exactly, and
different
it
story.
is interesting because there's been already court cases of what space are you entitled to?
Right.
Kind of like what mineral rights do
Yeah,
you have
what
underneath your
airspace.
house? and what
Yeah,
airspace
so
is
it's just
above.
like
That's
what
interesting.
space are you
Yeah.
entitled to? Like you say,
Anything
I
you
don't
can
want
see
you
from a public space is considered public view, right? But
right. But now
the sky
you're
above my
leveraging-
pool is not considered public
Yeah.
space. The
Right.
public can't access that space.
Exactly. So it'll be
Right.
interesting to see how that fades.
Yeah, I would think there's probably I know there's already air rights, but I would think that will probably be open to more court cases.
Yeah.
I can see a lot of
I think
discussions
the best way
happening
to
about that.
navigate it would just honestly to create just digital roadmaps in the sky, pre-approved flight routes. I think will
Be
be the
like the
best way going
Jetsons.
forward. So you're not necessarily flying over people's backyards. I think,
Right.
So
I think almost like flying,
like a road,
which
in
is
the
which
sky.
is unfortunate. Right? The whole point of flight is to decrease time because you can fly as a crow flies. That shorter distance.
Right.
But I think going forward, if we were going to see any sort of delivery, I think we're going to see aircraft take
quite literally the route of the road beneath them. I think that alleviates any invasion of privacy, flying over people's backyards, upsetting the nature or wildlife in the area.
Well, yeah, you got to think the birds are already there.
Yeah, you know,
right?
the birds, you know, you don't want to make the birds angry or anyone else angry.
Yeah.
So
but I like birds, but there are people who love birds.
I think if you just fly, if you have the drone fly the path that you know your delivery driver would already be taking, like why not?
Well, I think if you increase AI and you can equip them with 5G, right? Similar to what they're doing with full self-driving cars, is they want all the cars to talk to each other, right? If the robots can talk to each other, they're going to be less likely to have crashing, right? So if all the drones can talk to themselves, and they're already kind of talking now, right? Hey, I'm here, you're there, okay, just stay in your zone. I think you wouldn't see as many crashes, but I think as you increase the number of commercial items in the air, you're going to see crashes.
Yeah,
They're just going to happen. I mean, you see crashes on the road.
Well, and as long as the FAA is with the airplanes kind of doing their job.
Yeah, well, I mean, air traffic is required to fire a specific route at specific altitudes.
Yeah, you got to track where you're going.
You know what I mean? So that's already been pretty much determined and established. I think it's just a matter of scaling it down from there. You're not going to get anything in the air bigger than an airplane.
I wonder if you would see like
scaling it down,
certain corporations buying up like. Well, my flight space is the 50-foot here between 300 and 350, right? So this is the Amazon Air Ride. So you guys need to
almost like a radio license. You know,
yeah.
I have this wavelength.
Yeah, I've got this.
I have this channel.
Sure.
Yeah. This is my FM station.
Right. I can see that.
Right.
So what industries do you guys see adopting drone services a lot more?
Yeah.
From what I've seen personally, agriculture and disaster response. Disaster response is huge. We saw it with these 2 hurricanes. Last October, last August, because it's incredible. There's so many things that you don't realize that play out. There's so many rivers and creeks here in Florida. Once there's damage done from a hurricane, these areas become inaccessible to boats.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know,
they're overflowing with water and
exactly.
debris.
So and then what you don't realize, you're like saying, oh, like why are these roads flooding? Like this is not like we're above ground. And it's not until you get that aerial perspective and say, oh, like. There's a tree over here in this river, it's creating a dam. It's over flooding the neighborhoods in the area that would normally outflow out to the Gulf of Mexico, and you wouldn't have these kind of issues. So, and we saw that, talk to some people in the industry, and they were normally, the county will send people out on boats to go inspect the damage done and just do visual inspections.
From the ground.
And the problem with the county is they actually don't have any licensed drone operators. They don't have a drone program in place.
They get a few helicopters from, maybe the fire department.
Right, from the sheriff's department or the fire department.
Even local news will report back, as they're out there doing observations.
Yeah, and it's just,
the operating cost of a helicopter.
I was going to say the operating costs. And then the counties, you're working with federal budgets and state budgets. So, yeah, I mean, I would love to reach out to them and propose something because, I think going forward with more hurricanes, more, whatever is going to happen in the future, I think disaster response is just huge. I mean, search and rescue, disaster response.
I think
it's very important. It's very cost effective.
Mm-hmm. I think those are probably the biggest industries that are going to be growing the fastest coming up. I think right now you're still seeing the insurance companies start to come to the drones, right, so that we can go up on the roof, so you don't have to send a person up there, right? Less risk up there on the roof, especially if there are, shingles that are loose and they step on it, right? The roofing companies also, if they're needing to go do an inspection on a 10-story building, instead of having to send someone up there, you just send the drone up. It's faster. It's safer.
I've seen drones knocking ice off of high-tension power lines, up north. Doing all kinds of really neat service-based missions, that are just frankly just way too dangerous.
They're risky, right? And those people that do them now are paid appropriately to take on that risk. But if we can save somebody from having to climb a 400-foot telephone or radio tower, and we can send a drone up there to change the light bulb once I
was just thinking that years, you got to redesign the light bulb so that the light bulb's exposed, right?
Just get the drone up there,
figure out a way for it to open the cover, right?
That would be great too. Just take the almost like the MacBook approach, where they have the magnetic chargers. So if you actually knock it off, it's just a strong magnet holding it in.
Just one giant light bulb falling 400 plus feet from the sky.
Oh no, it's got a magnetic base. It just kind of
it'll attach to the drone. Okay.
No, I mean they do it to avalanche control. You know what I mean? Instead of shooting explosives up there. It's easy to just fly over with a drone, drop very specific things in specific areas. God, man,
I mean, I think really sky is literally the limit. We've taken up on Earth.
But
AXB. Is that our new motto? We're gonna change it now.
Sky is the limit. What's your
People like
most
corny.
hilarious or epic fail that you've had?
To crash one?
Like to
No,
you
no.
got one. I
I
see
I was gonna
it.
say, like,
I
as a
see it.
company,
FAA,
or like
we
in my
do
own
not crash.
time?
Right.
No.
You went out, bought the brand new drone. Thought, I'm just gonna fly it real quick, right?
I was gonna say-
That's why we bought the
Bing.
insurance.
As
you know?
as a company, I don't think we've had any epic fails yet, but I've had many fails on my own accord.
Yeah, well, that was
That's how you learn.
That was before we got the
Yeah,
Air
that
3 with the
was
obstacle
avoidance,
avoidance.
and stuff, and the lidar forward-facing radar
Yeah.
systems.
I mean, you just change a few.
He's flying in the
props, no
dark
big
out there a
deal.
couple
Yeah.
times, right?
Yeah, 'cause I think the most difficult thing, most challenging thing I've shot was taking off from a sailboat and then trying to land back on said sailboat, because between the winds and the halyards and the
Oh,
different
yeah.
lines streaming down,
It moves.
and we're moving, and
the
I
waves.
need somewhere, I either have to
Yeah.
catch it out of the air or I
Coast
need a
Guard
landing
experience.
pad.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was my most challenging epic fail. I did hit a halyard, and it came tumbling
Crashing
down.
down.
It did come
It did
crashing
go in
down.
the drink,
It
though.
did not go into the water. I don't know. I guess I crashed with grace. Like, it was almost an intentional
Were you
crash.
able
Yeah.
to fix it and just? Or
Yeah,
was it
these things are pretty flexible. I mean, there's a big
Snap-on,
aftermarket. Yeah, you're
snap-off
able
type
to
thing.
find parts and
Yeah,
plastics
for, the
and
for
props
some of
and-
it, I've had a friend break his drone's arm off, and they got him just replaced.
There's a lot of like
because he hit
interchangeability
a
to it. Like,
tree.
oh, I'm going to put a new, different type of camera or a different type of lidar system. Or
So there's
a lot of like just customization in terms of aftermarket parts. I bought this drone, but I got these props. I got these skids. I got
Yeah.
this camera.
Yeah, no, it's great that you asked that. So DJI, they have what's called their Enterprise series, and that's where you can really get into that kind of
Modification.
Lego mindset.
Right. A la carte.
Yeah.
A la carte, absolutely. So in their Enterprise editions, they are made with certain attachments. So if you want to do a LiDAR, you can slide it on. Or if you need thermal, you slide off your LiDAR detector, and then you can slide in your thermal
Right.
camera in its place. Same thing with like cameras. If you need optical zoom or telephoto zoom, where you need a certain, you can switch out the cameras. Now the Enterprise systems are drastically expensive. Like they charge a pretty penny from. I mean, when you start going into DJI's Enterprise edition,
Anything
series,
enterprise
you're
is
looking-
always like,
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, like,
right?
you're
Our
like-
QuickBooks software is the same thing. I remember when I started out, I paid this little price, $29.95 a month.
That's
Well,
right.
like $500 a month now or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say Enterprise Edition drones from DJI. I mean, you're starting out at 7,000, 8,000.
But they are top of the line, right?
Yeah,
They're-
but then you're looking at all your attachments, But
Well, if you're trying to get a specific job done and you need
Yeah.
these specific attachments,
yeah, because I mean, it's so cool what they have. They have a Enterprise drone where you can attach like spotlights. They have basically a search and rescue style drone where you can buy their search and rescue package, and you can put, instead of having like a gimbal for your camera, you have a gimbal for these like spotlights, and you can aim the spotlights in areas that you're looking for and
send
stuff.
down
and
like 100,000 lumens. Just,
yeah, it's amazing. It's honestly
Right,
so
instant
incredible.
sun.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's so cool to think of like it's just, I love the creativity of like what people come
Right,
up with.
right.
That's what I really love.
If you had a budget, unlimited budget, and what would be your dream drone project?
Ooh. I don't know about it. I've not thought about a dream drone project. I mean, an unlimited. We recently had a customer reach out that we might be working with here in the future, and they have asked us to survey / provide videography and photos of an island in Manatee County that they're trying to broker a deal with, and we think that would be a really cool project to work on just here locally. Because it is,
We got to talk how big it is.
it's one island is 667 acres, right? So it's a massive.
That's a
Nice.
decent
Yeah.
size
Yeah, it's almost a
island.
square
Size,
mile.
yeah.
It's about what 2 miles from the furthest tips of the island, and so to be able to get some good footage of that, to survey it for them, to provide it, for their customers, I think that'd be something cool to work with and see,
Extended battery
and
life
then
for
to
that
see
one.
what
Yeah,
they
yeah.
do with it, right?
Yeah.
But when we were talking about the battery, we need.
Yeah.
We have 4 batteries for our drone that we have on us at all times with the charging, right? So if we do have to go out there and get the footage, we can. But I think to start that, right, to get the initial footage and then follow it through the project. I think that's a dream right now, is just to show the progress from point A to start to point Z to here it's done,
Right.
And that is like half the fun. So like every location that we end up, it's a little bit of problem solving. Short of using Google, like we would typically use Google Earth and kind of get an idea of like where we're going to be for our location. But it's just super fun. Like everything's just, I love being creative. So it's just
Right.
nothing but problem solving.
Yeah.
So with this island, we were interested because it's over by the Sunshine Skyway, but we realized the amount of flight time, if we needed to start on the mainland and fly over to the island, it would take up nearly
almost the same
25% of our battery
amount.
life
Right.
just flying from our starting location to the beginning of the island.
Right.
So
Watch
then-
off that
so-
sailboat.
Yeah.
Watch
Yeah,
out for the
yeah, it's funny. That's why you
hags.
say yeah. So we were brainstorming. We're like, oh, like we do we take
get
a
a
boat out
watercraft,
there?
yeah.
Do we go into
Launch
this-
from the island.
You know,
yeah.
we're looking from Google Earth. Like, do we go from this neighborhood and
Yeah.
stuff?
Can we start there, get a quarter of it, and then go
Yeah.
to the other
Mhm.
side? But
Yeah, it's just super funny. Yeah, because we're like, oh, what if we film this 1/3 section of the island, then drive over here to this neighborhood?
That's a
leave,
little
take
bit
off from
yeah.
here, go catch the next second third.
The
of the
funny thing
island.
is
Right.
every-
You can just stitch them all together, though. I mean, you could do a lot of
Yeah.
different things,
Yeah,
though,
absolutely.
too.
Yeah.
So you guys handle all the
Yeah.
editing. You're the creative directors. You're the editors, producers.
yeah.
financiers.
So
and the,
I had a short stint into YouTube videos when my second son was born, and we were working on doing children's type videos. We got really big into Miss Rachel. If your listeners know who that is, she's not on Netflix. Go Miss Rachel. And so I was like, oh, this sounds awesome. You know, I love reading to my son. You know, a lot of kids don't get that one-on-one. So if I can try to kind of give that there. So I've got some video production experience, and so we're doing that also with the drone footage right now. You know, we're not making full-length feature movies with this, so
Right.
you know, with a lot of the available programs, we're able to cut these video together, right? Because no one wants to watch a 20-minute slow video
Right.
of circulating an island,
Right.
right? So how can we cut it down, compress it, and show everything without losing attention?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the creative process.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Anybody can just go out there, fly the drone around.
Well,
no
everybody
problem, but
we've
then
had
stitch all
on
that
the-
together and tell a story.
I mean,
with
everybody
that.
we've had on the podcast, it's a common theme. It's always problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever business it is, it's always problem solving.
Yeah, because every project has a story to it, right? So when we go out to review a roofing, right? But the roof, the hospital's still under construction, so you've got the
Right.
crane out there. Okay, so we got a problem solved to watch out for the crane. Okay, what's the weather going to be like on these days? Because if it's going to be raining on
Yeah, you
Tuesday,
can't
I
do it,
better
yeah.
not go shout on Tuesday, right? Do a Wednesday, do a Monday, you know. So it's
Right.
a lot of problem solving in that essence, and then when we get out there, it's like, okay, now we can tell the story, and we can kind of get a nice view of all of the excavators kind of doing work as we come up to show the roof is, you know, in progress or completed for the
Right.
customer, right? Give them that story.
Yeah, who handles all your social media and everything else?
So I primarily 75%. Yeah, we kind of share it, right? As a startup right now, we're still sharing responsibilities, but primarily I'm working with the native Meta Business program to do Facebook, Instagram, the LinkedIn program as well. So we haven't seen a need yet to go to a third party that can
Right.
do API calls and just kind of push it for us yet. But for now, I'm doing most of the social media.
Cool. So drones are, autonomous in nature, although you pilot them specifically, but drone would suggest autonomous, right? Teslas and other electric car companies and car manufacturers out there right now are they're data farming, essentially. Tesla, everywhere it goes, everywhere it drives, it's mapping, video, sensors, road conditions, average speeds. Right? It's just data farming, massive amounts of data. And so with the drone industry and the private drones and everything, is there any collection of data for preemptive analytic purposes or future technologies?
Yeah, so I know when we use DJI, when we sign
Like,
on,
do
they do have a flight record. So I can actually go into my profile
Black
and
box.
see exactly like a black box, and I can see my flight profile of any of my previous flights.
Yeah.
And it has my altitude, my speed, and the coordinates
Right.
at that
Elevation.
time. Yeah, the elevation changes, whatever I flew. It quite literally has. It's almost like Flight Aware if you've ever used that. It'll track my entire route. And it
But
saves it to
DJI doesn't capture any of this analytic data, altitude, GPS coordinates, flight times, nothing.
No, I think
and
they
do
do.
they farm
They're
any of the
probably-
data from all their drones?
I mean, as a large company as they are, they probably
Yeah, I was
are
gonna
trying to figure out what their drones are being used for, and that way they can offer a better service, right? In our instance, I don't think we're using any data boxes yet, any sort of data servers, but I could see them using that to see, okay, what are people using our drones for? How, what do they like to use them for? Okay,
where
so
are they flying?
where
How
are they
often are they
flying?
flying?
Yeah.
And what
Often.
altitudes do they average?
So that's
and
another
fly
thing
at?
because DJI inherently has a responsibility just by selling the consumer the product of like this air vessel. Like, hey, there are regulations in place.
Right.
Is airspace. So I know DJI has what's called geolock. So if you're in a restricted flight area, it doesn't even let you take off.
Yeah.
So I do think DJI is taking accountability in that way where it is logging and data farming. But I think it's on the side of regulation compliance to make sure you're not breaking airspace, you're not being reckless, you're not endangering other people, you're not, because there is restricted flight zones, exactly like Raymond James Stadium. If there's a football game going on, you'll get a temporary flight restriction. You'll be like, oh, I fly here all the time. But DJI has that real-time information say, oh, there's a flight restriction.
There's a geofence
there's a geofence. Like, you're not flying within 1 mile of the stadium on this day.
Yeah, but that little $50 drone you can buy at Walmart.
Yeah,
you can take that and do it.
Yeah, you walk into it with it in your pocket.
Yeah,
you sneak it in.
That is true.
I'm surprised you haven't seen more of that at like sporting events and stuff like that.
I don't know. As expensive as some sporting events are, you're there to kind of just enjoy the game. Then you're all right. Well, I'm gonna fly my drone out right now. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody that sees the commercial viability of that. They're like,
well, listen, somebody's got to streak across the field.
It's
like
you
that's
like
the
a
new
special
level of
occasion.
streaking, right? I'm gonna send my drone out.
Someone at the next Super Bowl, they're like, all right, I know so and so's gonna streak, so I'll get it
At least
ready.
you'll probably get to watch the rest of the game, though.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool to like fly down, buzz Mike Evans, get a touchdown pass. I don't know. Might be worth getting kicked out for.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
I'm sure you could sell that to something. Somebody.
All right, so we're gonna put a bunch of links down below for everybody to be able to get in touch with you, and the website, and samples of the product. Especially Eclipse Building Corp's sites. That's probably the best recommendation and representation of AXB's work.
Couldn't agree more.
What do you love most about running and owning your own business now? Because you came from the military and everything.
Yeah,
so.
I love just being an entrepreneur. I love learning. That's my biggest thing right now. Is I'm also taking classes right now for my MBA, so it's been really awesome.
Oh, you're doing your
I'm
MBA
currently
with
taking
your
my
sister.
MBA. Yeah, we're both getting our MBAs, which is funny. But it's just so cool to see
We're
in
cheating off each
practice. Yeah, we're sharing the answers to the test. It's just really fun to put into practice what I'm learning, whether it be learning about corporations, tax law, and seeing it in real time as we're navigating this new business all together. It's just super fun to I don't know, I just always love learning new challenges.
I'm really enjoying the ability to deliver something to somebody, right? To kind of create, as you said, as a GC or as someone in the construction side, we help build this building. Yes, we're providing more of the photography and the videography from it, but that company is going to use that to market it, right? Or they're going to try to sell their services. So we're a part of this economy that is running, and I'm directly involved in it now, right? I've worked in corporations where you're this kind of cog in the machine, right? That's what everybody says. And not that you don't matter there, but when you're running a business, you matter a whole lot more. And you're able to take, I think, more pride, and you can also problem solve. So it's just this everyday fun experience. What are we doing next?
It's a unique industry too, in that every time you go out to a site, whether it be for me or any other general contractor or farm or anything, you bring tremendous value to that company, to that project. I know, especially for us, be able to show and highlight that footage and highlight our projects. That just lends to our own credibility and raises our own brand awareness, and ultimately we're going to grow as a company. But it's a very symbiotic relationship, right? It does the exact same thing for you simultaneously.
Absolutely.
Every time somebody gives you an opportunity to go out there, that's one more, that's another growth, it's another leaf on the tree, it's another feather in the cap. And then, a rising tide raises all boats, right?
Yeah.
So it's a unique industry to be in that there's a direct handoff and a desire for both parties to want to grow, to want to deliver the best product they possibly can.
Yeah.
I certainly do, and I want to showcase that to its highest standard, as do you as a business, right?
Absolutely.
So, that's one of the really unique things that I found with the particular relationship of drones and industry, is that they both serve just a tremendous need for one another.
Yeah. I think the feedback we've gotten is also that our clients get to show their clients, right? Because that's, again, we talked about that earlier, in being in communication, somebody is fronting the cost to build this building or to make this interior project change design happen. And so to be able to show them, from start to finish, here we are, point A, point B, point C, and then they get that level of calm of yes, this is what I wanted. Oh, it's better than what I expected, and this is where we're already at. So I think, like you said, it's a symbiotic relationship throughout the entire chain, right?
Yeah.
So Where do you see AXB in 5 years? Where do you guys want to be?
I mean, just leader of the local industry and maybe further. No.
I hope you're still working at Eclipse.
I
I hope 5 years from now I'm not short one of our greatest accounting staff. You know what I mean? That's for sure.
No, we definitely want to keep. I think
it'll
we,
build a
Right,
great
how many
relationship.
people do you see employing, and how are
Right.
you going to scale? And
yeah. So we're fairly new still, so we haven't really hammered out all the details on those questions.
no, we are still doing that too.
Yeah, good.
We've
That
been in
makes me feel
business 11
better.
years, so.
No, but I could see us scaling up and employing more operators who are FAA certified, right? Because that's one of the bigger things is to when we are trying to talk to people, they're like, oh, well, our construction guy just flies his drone for us, and I'm like, okay, well, you're building right next to an airport. Have you thought about what's the risk there? Are you insured with that? Because there's
You
specific
make a good
insurance
point,
with
because
it.
a lot of people think they can just do it
Yeah,
themselves.
and
Well, there's
there's
a shortage of pilots in the industry as a whole, and
Yeah, I think going forward in 5
it's a
years,
great avenue for either retirees or people that are coming into the industry to learn, get their vocabulary down, understand coordinates and flight patterns and stuff.
Yeah, honestly, going forward, like say 5 years down the line, I wouldn't mind seeing almost a network of AXB, almost like I don't know how
to
what's
like
the word I'm
not
looking for?
franchise out per se, but
Almost,
Yeah.
because a lot of times then we'll work with a company, but then they'll have a location that's 300-400 miles away.
Right.
And it'd be great to have like a network of reliable employees where we could reach out to them and say like, hey, we need this done in your area versus. Because right now we are hoofing it, to
Yeah, what is your
Sarasota,
territory right
Bradenton,
now?
Ocala.
What is your geographical reach right now for AXB?
So we've gone as far north as the Ocala International Airport, and we've gone as far south right now. It was Lakewood Ranch or Sarasota. I think Sarasota is a little bit further down.
Yeah.
I mean we've been in Bradenton a couple
Bradenton.
times now, and so we're trying not to go too far. We do have some networks in the construction industry that are down near West Palm Beach that are like, oh, we have this project. We'd love for you guys to try, and we're not opposed to seeing what they need and if we can help them. So as of right now, though, we're focusing on what you can call the greater Tampa Bay area, right? Sarasota up to Ocala.
St. Pete.
Yeah, St. Pete for sure.
Yeah, Pinellas, Hillsborough, Polk, and where we live. Pasco.
Oh yeah, Pasco. Yeah, well we've
Don't
been
forget,
out.
like Pasco, kind
Yeah.
of like it's separated from the Tri-County area.
Yeah.
And I don't know how Polk gets dragged into that. They're in the middle of the state. You know what I
question.
mean? Pasco's got miles of beach coast.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I mean, we haven't gotten a client near the Kissimmee Disney area yet, but I'd love to see what their air restrictions are.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So how do people get in touch with you?
So we've got our website, axbdronesolutions.com. We've got our Instagram, which is AXB Drone Solutions as well, and LinkedIn and Facebook, right? We've got
Awesome.
all the major socials for now.
Awesome.
Is there
And
anything else that you would like to share about AXB or anything?
Ooh, I should have prepared for this. I think we're a growing company that so far our clients have said that we're providing quality services for. We've gotten some good projects under our belts, and we are people who are reliable. We're going to be in communication. What are the TNT, right? Takes no talent, right? We want to be in communication with you. We want to deliver on time. These are things that we're here to provide that we're just seeing is not being met by other operators for some reason.
Right. Well, I can certainly attest to that. We've tried several different drone and aerial companies over the years. I've been hiring drone and aerial companies I've been in the industry 3 decades now. And I can remember down in the South Florida area, it was Smith Aerial was one of the biggest companies out, and it was all out of a helicopter. High-powered lens out of a helicopter, Robin R22 or an R44. And then he got smart. He would rent the helicopter to student pilots to fly him around to take pictures, and he charges you a fortune because it costs a lot to operate this
It does.
helicopter that somebody else is already paying him for.
That's brilliant.
So he had a
The
really good
student's
business
getting
model for
flight
years,
time, and
but-
he's getting paid.
We need to figure out how to double dip it.
Right, exactly.
You should do an
Double dip.
internship.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Right, but no, I can certainly attest to it. The quality of the work, working with you guys has been an
appreciate that.
absolute joy. So thank you very much for all that.
Yeah, thank you guys for
coming
having
in.
us.
Thank you guys.
thank
Really
All right,
appreciate it.
Awesome. So the Cody and Cody's with AXB, we're going to drop all the links below for the company and samples of the product. I'm Todd, the contractor.
And I'm Shannon, the accountant.
Thanks.